Hi guys! So, today's the day of the Stellar Awards and I'm staying in a hotel, feeling very fancy. Actually handy because usually after these awards, like, you know, if you're in Dublin, you will know how hard it is to get taxis at the moment. So I'm staying in Beckett Lock, which is down by the Three Arena. And it's kind of like an apartment hotel. It's a little sitting area. I'll show you around. Seating area, television area, my Uggs, bathrooms in here, then a separate bedroom, very nice, and then a dark hallway. A full-length mirror though, the light's not on. So I got my hair done and the brief was messy hair because it is disgusting out today, and I was like, there's literally no point in me doing anything with my hair that can't look like still good if it gets fucked up by the wind and rain. So I think we nailed it. Matthew did my hair as always. I'm gonna chill out here for a while today. I've just ordered some lunch. I'm gonna get ready here, I'm gonna do my makeup, and we're gonna have a chit chat because I asked some questions for you guys on Instagram, and we're gonna do maybe a little mukbang, maybe a little get ready with me while answering some questions about kind of careers and stuff, because I get asked that a lot in general on Instagram whenever I do a Q&A. I think because, I mean, like, I don't really know why. Like, I mean, I'm not exactly like a career specialist, but I have worn many hats. Not that many, but a few. I obviously, like, I went to college and changed. Like, I didn't do anything to do with my degree. I worked in marketing for years. I also worked a bit in the art world. That was in New York. Then I moved into being kind of like self-employed. So I do always get questions and I'm gonna answer them for you. And I'm also older. Like, I feel like, you know, even though I do have quite an older YouTube audience, which I love, I know a lot of you guys are like 25, 26, 27, and I remember those years being quite confusing as to trying to like figure out where you're supposed to go in life, what you're supposed to do. Like, should I be sticking with the job I'm in now? Should I take a risk? I know that feeling. I remember having those feelings at that age as well. But yeah, we're gonna talk about that. I'm gonna wait for my food though and maybe do a bit of work. My look tonight, let me see if I can put you down somewhere. So my look tonight, I'm taking a loan of it from Courtney. It's very handy having a stylist friend, I have to say, in these situations, because I actually put it up with my close friends on Instagram being like, girls, I need someone to donate me some clothes because I can't be arsed buying something for an award ceremony again. I hope my hair isn't fucking going to shit. Because like, you do end up buying a lot of stuff, and like, I end up buying, like, I mean, it's not red carpet, like, but you end up buying real fancy shit, and I don't do a lot of fancy shit, so we all need to start sharing our clothes is my opinion. And Courtney, like, I mean, of course she's a stylist, so she was so good. I literally went over to her house and she had a rail pulled for me. I was like, I fucking love you. And she gave me this dress that I think is like, it's so cool. Like, I don't know, it could, no, I don't want to sound like I'm turning up like fucking J-Lo at those awards that she was so controversial for, but I'm like, it could be, it is quite sexy and see-through. I always end up in a fucking see-through dress, even when I don't want to be. I swear to God, my VIP Style Awards dress was see-through too. I was like, why do I do this to myself? And I'm wearing these cool boots in it, so I'm excited. I'm excited to get glam, get my makeup on. I've got tan on. I kind of want to put a little bit more tan on. Should I? I don't have any on my face yet. Just moisturizer on the old face. We'll have to see, we'll have to see. My nails also need to be done and they're not getting done for today. The one thing I will say about Biab is it definitely, like, you don't get as much out of it as acrylic, I feel. That's my one, like, one of my nails is not chipped, but like, well, chipped. I don't know, that could be user error though. I never want to like throw people under the bus because I do feel like I'm very hard on my nails, but that is why in the past I've got acrylic, because I'm hard on them. Anyway, I'm rambling. Okay, I got my sushi, but I want to go to the shop because I want to go just get some bits. Like, do you ever get this, right? I'm kind of whispering because I'm in a hallway. Do you ever forget that you're an adult and can do what you want? Happens to me all the time. Like, fully, I'll sit in a hotel as if my mom and dad are going to come home. Do you know what I mean? And I have to be good. And I'm like, I just realized, like, I can go start drinking if I want. I'm not gonna, but if I wanted to, I could. Finally a bit of luck, guys. Look at that. The skies have opened up. They are blue. Wasn't forecast to, but it's blue and it's nice. I don't care about a bit of it. It's nice and dry out too. It's not like humid, so my hair should be fine. I'm gonna go into the shop. Centra. Do I want to do Centra? Okay, we'll try it. I want like a stunning grocery shopping experience. Do you know what I mean? Like not like nothing too fancy, but like I would like, you know, some San Pellegrino water, some, I don't know. I want the snacks to be a little bit more elevated than Centra. I talked a lot of mad shit on Centra and I'd like to formally apologise because A, I didn't eat that many snacks, B, they had some Pellegrino, so. Okay guys, it's 2:30. I've loads of time. So I have enough time to like not only eat all this Japanese food I got so much. I got too much because I was like, fuck it, I'm gonna be like mukbang bitch. But also because I know Evan's gonna come here at some point and probably want some food, so I will have some for him. I also got this in Centra, Pop Off, Centra and Asahi. It's 2:30, so I think I've got enough time to drink a beer, which I rarely do, but I love Asahi with Japanese food. So I think I have enough time to drink this and not be too bloated for later. So let's cross our fingers for that. Oh, okay, so what do we get? I got this, it's called the Salmon Dream Platter, which is like, that is my dream. That's all I want to eat in the sushi spot, to be honest. Then I got a classic, a miso soup. And then I kind of went rogue then. I got these kimchi wings, which look really messy. Not really into that. Ooh, they taste good. Spicy. And then I got gyoza. Prawn gyoza. Let me mix up my soup and put on my thinking cap. Do you know what I did? I made such a rookie mistake. I forgot to bring any clothes for tomorrow, so I'm gonna have to get Evan to pick me up then. But I also wore clothes for the rain. It reminds me of in school. Well, I didn't have a uniform in school, so maybe only people who didn't have a uniform can relate to this. But like, you'd wake up in the morning and be pissing rain. You're like, oh, and you want to just be cozy, and you put on like a hoodie and baggy jeans, and then it gets sunny, and you're like sweating, and like you feel minging and homeless. That's what I feel like now. So I wore like a big baggy jumper. This is old Zara, I love this jumper. And these baggy jeans, and I'm like covered in tan, so I kind of feel a bit rotten. Oh my god. Name a food better than miso soup, honestly. Okay, question number 1. I just don't want an office job. The thought of it terrifies me. Girl, you know what it is with office jobs and all that kind of stuff. You either romanticize them when you're not in them, or you're afraid of them when, like, just the thoughts, you know? When I worked in retail, I remember all I wanted was an office job. I was like, oh, it sounds like amazing. Like, you get to just go in, you just sit down, like you don't have to be running around all over a shop floor fucking 24/7. Which is amazing when you have been running around a shop floor 24/7. Don't get me wrong. Like, that is such a good feeling where you're like, oh my god, I love, let's try these. Oh my god. Okay, they're fucking best. Wow. Like, you do romanticize it. I understand the fear though. You're probably a person who doesn't like, I don't want to say stability, but maybe you just don't like the mundane day to day, because office jobs are mundane. There's beauty in the mundanity? No. There is beauty in the mundane. You know, you make friends, you have office gossip, that is very fun. So, you know, don't be too afraid of it. I understand the fear though. And look, if you really don't want to do something, just don't do it. Or go into something like PR, because if you work in PR, you don't spend all your time in the office. You're like building events, like on sites, doing recce's, like photo shoots, all of that kind of stuff. So if you work for a cool PR company, you get the benefits of an office, so that you can just like have a little, you know, a little gossip, a schmooze, sit down, you know, you don't have to be too fucking up on your feet all day. But you also have days where you're like completely out of office all day, which is amazing. So I understand it, but like, do you know what it is with most things, and like, when it comes to life, you just have to try it. So like, if a job comes up, I wouldn't like if a job comes up that's in an office, for example, I wouldn't have yourself closed off to it just because you have this like irrational fear
of working in an office. You never know, you might love it. And to everyone who's romanticizing office jobs, you might miss retail. I, for one, and this could be a toxic trait of mine, I miss retail because when I was sitting down all day, I felt like shit. Like, and I still sit down all day. You know, that has not changed. I do remember that when I was working in retail, you really do burn so many calories. So like, you're bollocks by the end of the day, you know? You're sort of knackered. You're more like physically tired than you are mentally tired. Whereas when I was in an office job, you're more mentally tired at the end of the day. Which like, sounds better, but I actually thought it was kind of worse. There's something beautiful about not having to use your brain all the time. Honestly. And like, you can get a little bit socially drained with retail. I don't want the rest of those wings. I'm going to leave them for Evan. Because people ask really annoying things when you work in retail. Like, they need so much attention and mammying. So that's really annoying. But at the end of the day,
it was at this moment that she knew. She fucked up.
I think I'm going to have to leave that in. That was the most ridiculous thing that's ever happened to me. Oh my god. Didn't spill as much as I thought. That was traumatizing. That was fucking traumatizing. I think that was the world telling me that A, you're a dumb bitch, and B, you will bloat if you drink that much beer, Jenny. My job is a lot of work alone, no team, just manager and myself. I find it hard to motivate myself. Okay, well, I do have a lot of experience in this because I've come from having a team to being completely on my own, and I worked an office job. This table being rocky is fucking killing my vibe. Okay, we fixed the rocking table. I've had experience in this. Jesus Christ, this video. Mercury is well and truly in retrograde, girls. I also had a job, an office job, if you will, where I was just by myself. And I'm gonna tell you, that fucking job was miserable. Oh my god. And I found it really hard to motivate myself in that job. I think the best thing you can do, and something I do now, or try to do at least anyway, is that you have to like give yourself lists. Like, I'm a big list person. Like, I'm actually not naturally a very big list person, but I've made myself become a list person. And what I've done is I've just made sure that like I will usually only give myself 3 things, like 3 major tasks to do in a day. And I used to do this when I worked in an agency too. I'd be like, okay, I have to do this, this, and this. Like, they're like absolute have to be done today, like deliverables, and I would usually get them all done by like 4 o'clock, and then I'd have like an hour or two to catch up on more work slash look on ASOS, you know. I'm a big believer also that like, if you fucking have your work done, let me go home, bitch. Like, fuck off with this. Like, I used to be sitting in the fucking office doing sweet fuck all. Like, let me go home. I've done all my shit. I'm not gonna start doing anything else. Like, I have an hour left in work. I'm not doing anything but shopping, baby. But yeah, so I think you have to make lists. I think you have to hold yourself accountable, but don't overwhelm yourself with lists, you know, because that is something that I do see people do. Now, how am I supposed to have, I want something to dip my sushi into the soy sauce. So yeah, I think you have to do a list. You have to hold yourself accountable to the list. So for me, that means not overwhelming myself with like 50 million things to do. I'll try and plan it out. I've done a weekly reset video, and that kind of gives you the idea of what I try to do now. Like, I'll be like, okay, Monday is like finalized podcast, and I know how long that takes me usually, so I'm not gonna also put down like 3 other things to do. And then Tuesday is usually like record podcast, or if it's already recorded, sometimes I get it recorded before, it's like edit and then make social assets to go up to promote the podcast. And then I usually have Wednesday, Thursday, Friday free for like creative shit, research, all that kind of stuff. So I kind of have it down now. And I think that no matter what job you're in, you always have, like, me dunking all this soy sauce in, what am I doing? You always have like certain things that you know, like say you've got this meeting on this day, or like you and your boss have a catch up on the Friday, so Thursday you're going to prep for that. Like, try and do it like that. I think they're the best ways to try and keep yourself motivated, because for me, if I have a list, I'll just do it. If I don't have a list, baby, I'm not doing anything. I'm not doing a thing. I'll be like doing like, I don't know if I have ADD. Like, I don't know, like sometimes I really think I do,
because I find it very hard to like stick with one task for a long time. Like I will be half doing everything sometimes. I always get it done, but like Jesus Christ, especially now that I work for myself, I'm like if I'm trying to like clean the house, like I'll be like cleaning the counter, and then all of a sudden I'll be like, oh, I can't clean the counter until I clean the bathroom though. So then I'll start cleaning the bathroom, and then I'll be like, oh, I can't clean the bathroom until I tidy my office, and then all of a sudden nothing's done. Lists are your friend. Even if you are not a list person, you can become a list person. Trust me, I was never a list person. I've gotten better. It's the only way I finish anything. If it's not on the list, I'm not doing it. Not because I don't want to. I always want to be very productive, but my mind will just be like, no. Like once I tick, there's something also very satisfying by ticking things off on a list. Like if you have Monday 3 things and you're like cross, you feel very productive. Career culture is so exhausting to me, but I feel so stuck, like I don't have any options. Career culture is exhausting, and if someone doesn't know what that is, let me explain it to you, or my interpretation, shall we say, of what I feel career culture is. Career culture is this idea that like you have to like fucking love your job, and like your job is like why you get up in the morning, and like that your job has to be this like intrinsic part of your personality and your identity. And there's a lot of pressure on people, I think, especially because I think of influencer culture, for people to be like, I quit my 9 to 5 and like became self-employed, or like I fucking love my job, man. I don't know why I'm doing American accents, but I feel like we all do that when we're trying to be a bit ridiculous. There is this pressure on people that like your job has to be fucking amazing, like that you're not really succeeding in life unless you have like a career, and that there's certain jobs that are careers, and this idea that there's certain jobs that aren't careers. I'm not saying I believe that, I'm saying that is the culture. And an example of that would be like, by a lot of career culture standards, like a job in like the service industry that is like maybe customer facing, retail, any job that's usually seen as like transitional or more like, I don't know, is ephemeral the right word? I don't think so. A little bit more transient, shall we say. People kind of seem to think that that's not a career, whereas like working at a fucking office is. Like what? Like there's this standard that like, oh, working in like, say working in a hotel as like housekeeping, or working in a hotel as like a bar person, that is less important than working in a hotel if you work in the marketing sector. What? In the same hotel? That makes no sense. A lot of that is classism, and also like ignorance as to how much people could make in those jobs. And like, whereas I know that people in service industry jobs and like retail definitely are underpaid, because like you have a really hard job. I worked in retail for fucking years. It is so tough. You are facing like some of the most brattiest, meanest, horrible customers in the world. But even when I worked in Arnott's, right? Arnott's is a really nice place to work. I'm not even like dissing it, but like there was this idea of like people who worked in like the head office were like, oh, like so much more important than little old me who worked like down on customer service, the customer service desk. But like we were doing the same job, you know. And then like I'd be up on the switchboard, and everyone would like, oh my god, loved me when I was on the switchboard. And I was so bad at that job, the switchboard one, not the other one. Switchboard one, like I was like, people would be like, can you send me to curtains? And I'd be like, yep. And I'd just send them somewhere random, and they'd be sent back to me, and I'd be like, oh sorry, that must be the other girl, it was only me. It is exhausting, and I understand what you mean, that you feel like you've no other options, but to kind of enter into this like careerism like idea that like you should love your job, and that your job isn't just a means to an end, because that really is what a job is. I'm like, I don't think there's any problem with that. I think there's any problem if you were making enough money to live the life that you want to live. Who gives a fuck how you make that money, you know? Like, what did anyone else but you? How you make your own money? Like, at the end of the day, we all end up with the same notes in our back pocket. You know what I mean? It's like, who gives a fuck if you're like a bartender, a fucking waitress, a fucking marketing executive. When I moved into marketing, I made less money in my first job than I ever did in retail. In retail, the best thing was that like I could do overtime, or I could pick up more shifts, or I could work more if I needed more money. Like, of course what comes with that is like a fluctuating income, but like I'd say my year in retail, I probably made around like maybe like €26,000 a year ish. if not a bit more. I'm being on the low end, I'm being conservative, but I do think like 26,000. And my first marketing job I got paid 21,000, and there's a big difference between that. Okay, that extra couple €100 a month is like a lot of fucking money when you're not making like, when you're making like the lower end of income. And I'm not being derogatory by saying that, but like I've worked many jobs. It took me a long time to break the 30 mark. For years I was, you know, and I think like the average salary in Ireland is like 30 grand a year anyway. So like, you know, you're trying to work up to that, and it takes a while, you know, but like you can definitely make that in retail or in waitressing or in whatever the fuck you want. And as I said, once the money's going in your back pocket, who cares? If you're feeling pressure, I understand it's really hard sometimes to like not bow down to that pressure, but like just try to do what you want to do, because you know, also don't feel like your job has to be like this like amazing. It's weird. Like I remember it was when I moved to New York, I felt I came across that first, like where I was like, oh my god, people literally like they'll ask you what your name is and then they ask you what you do, and I was like, I don't like this. Like it's such a weird feeling to be like judged on what I do, because that is what happens. Just tell them to fuck off, because half the people who are like, I'm an artist, I'm an actor, like no you're not, you're also a bartender. Like just because you have this fucking fancy sounding hobby that you're not making money off doesn't mean you're any better than me. So don't feel like you have to like fucking love your job or live for your job. If you don't care about your career and you just see a job as a means to an end, I say more power to you, and more people need to think that way. I have respect for people who love their careers. I have respect for people who pursue careers, but I also have respect for people who don't fucking care. Who cares? Okay, here's a college one. I'm currently in final year. I want to drop out. I can't see myself sticking it out. Any advice? She submitted the same question twice. So she's in college, she wants to drop out, she's in her last year. I'd say just stick it out. I know, I don't think college is the most important thing in the world, okay? I don't. Sue me, I don't care. Did I go to college? Absolutely yes. Was it a privilege to get to do so? 100% yes. But I do think that's what college is. I do think it's a privilege, and I don't think it's a necessity for some jobs. Okay, caveat there. But like, obviously if you want to be a doctor or whatever, but like the vast majority of people are going to do these arts degrees that like are fucking teaching you nothing. Like you obviously learn, like you become a little bit more worldly, you might live abroad, you meet different people. Of course there's definitely benefits to, like, I don't know what degree you're doing, but like I can only speak from my experience. There's benefits to being in college, of course. Obviously you do learn some shit, but what I mean is that it's not like information that I could only learn in college, personally. However, if you have invested your time, my time, to me, is the most valuable thing, okay? And I've really noticed that the more I've gotten older as well, like there's a reason why they say like people who are late, being late is disrespectful, because it's basically saying that like my time is more valuable than your time. That's what it means. That's what I pick it up as anyway. And like your time, you've put 2 years into this, okay? You may as well have something to show for it. I do think that. Like, look, even if it's a stupid fucking degree that you're never going to use. The annoying thing is, in society nowadays, people view people who go to college as superior than people who don't, which is obviously ridiculous, but they do. Now, I have never, oops, dropped my sushi. It's gonna be soaked in soy sauce. I have never in my life been asked to prove that I have a degree. Let me repeat that. I have never in my life been proved to ask that I have a degree. Isn't that insane? They've never been like, can you show us the degree? Like, I've just written a degree from Trinity, and they're like, oh my god, amazing, what was Trinity like? And I'm like, oh, it was so great. And they're like, oh my god, fantastic. You could totally make that up if you watch Normal People. That was pretty much my fucking Trinity experience, bar the sexy, steamy romance. But it is a thing. People do look at you when you're applying for jobs and they see you've got a degree. There's a lot of jobs that they claim you need a degree for. Like, when I went into marketing, they're all like, must have a marketing degree. I was like, fuck it, here, take my fucking art degree. Take it and shove it up your arse. So I do think if you're in your final year, girl, you're nearly there. Look, the final year is not fun, especially if you're writing a thesis. It's a pain in the hole. Just get it. Even scrape a pass. Because again, no one asks you, unless you're doing something like that you might have to prove. or if you want to go do a master's, they are not going to ask you, from my experience, personal experience, they will not ask you, oh, can you show us not only your degree but your grade? No. Just get the degree, take the paper, and wave goodbye to that kip. Okay, this girl asked me 3 questions, so I'm going to talk about them all in one. Is putting your career on hold to work in a bar in Australia for a year at 23 a mistake? Do I move country or stick with my stable job while living at home in Dublin? And how is it moving home from New York without a stable career? Okay, first off, is putting your career on hold to work in a bar in Australia at 23 a mistake? No. What's a mistake is not doing that. I will say that. Stable jobs are stable for a reason. They'll always be there. If you got that job once before, you can get it again, be it at that company or at a different company. I have learned this through the years. Like, when I first went, what's it called? Freelance, or like working for myself or whatever. Like, I did freelance work in my agency that I worked in, like 2 jobs previous. Like, if you worked there before, you can work there again. And especially if you leave on good terms, like, they don't give a fuck, you know what I mean? They'll take you back if you're good. But what won't? What's that like TikTok sound? It's like, I may get my money. I may get my money back. I'll get my money back, but I'll never be 23 working in a bar in Australia again. But it is true. Like, you have time on your side. And when you have time on your side, fucking go work in the bar in Australia. Get the experience. Why not? Do I move country or stick with my stable job? I think I answered that for you. I think you should move. I always tell people to move, especially when you're under the age of 25, you know? Like, who cares? They're the years to move. It's hard. It's a harder decision to make when you're my age, 32. It's like, fuck, do I move? Like, if I move now, I'm probably gonna have to settle down there. Like, I don't really have the time to be flailing around for 3 years. You know what I mean? 23, world's your oyster, baby. How is it moving home from New York without a stable career? So, when I moved to New York, my outlook was that I wasn't going to move to New York and like kind of just treat it as like a gap year. And that's not judging people who do. It was my personal preference. So I was just like, oh, I want to go there, and I want to, at least when I come home, because I obviously had to intern because I did the graduate visa, so you have to like work it as an intern, which is really not fun. So I was like, I'm just going to make the most of my experience, make loads of friends who are living in New York, based there, and actually get some internships that will help my career, or so I thought, which I know they did. So while I didn't move home to like a stable job, I did move home with like ammo in my gun, so to speak. Like, I came home with like a year's worth of experience working for a pretty reputable art magazine. I worked for a really big artist called Dustin Yellen. I worked for him for like, I think like 6 months. I thought I wanted to go into art, if you're not picking up my drift. So I didn't come home to a career, but I was like, I'll get a job. And it was like a little scary, but it was fine. Like, and I think the thing is like, don't let your ego get in the way. Like, don't be like, I'm only going to take a career job. Like, if you move home and you need to make a little bit of money, who cares? Go back to bartending, go back to working in thing. It might seem like a step back, but you're just making a means to an end. You can always get another job, truly. As a freelancer, do you do your own taxes or you use an accountant? Oh bitch, I use an accountant. Best fucking money I ever spent. I don't know how some people do it by themselves. I also just think, why bother? Why bother? Like, literally, like when I say, okay, so I say, what did I say? College is like redundant. Not when you're going to be an accountant. I have zero idea, unless you have actually done accountancy in college. I don't think you should be filing your own taxes. There, I said it. I don't care how many times you've done it, you're going to make a mistake. I've heard of people making mistakes before and then getting the revenue, calling them up 10 years later being like, you owe us this amount of money, blah blah blah, like being in debt. No thank you. There are certain jobs in this world that you have to you outsource, okay? And accountancy for me is one of them. Unless I was an accountant, I would not be doing my own accounts. It's also just like a pain in the ass. Like, not only do you have to fork over all this money in one lump sum to the government, which is like, like it actually makes you want to hurl how much fucking tax you pay as a sole trader. It's absolutely horrific.
But like that's the worst bit. At least I don't also have to be going through all my receipts and shit. Fuck that. Okay guys, I'm gonna finish my sushi. I can't believe I nearly ate all this. That's insane. Oh well. And then I'm gonna chill out. I'm gonna watch Real Housewives and I'll be back when I am getting glam. Okie dokie. Do you know what? This hotel doesn't have robes. I hate that because I love a good robe to get ready in. But we're gonna do this. Let's get in first. I'm gonna prep my skin with my faves. Amy Connolly Sculpted. I always call it just Amy Connolly Sculpted Hydra Glow Magic Serum. These two together, unreal. Any advice for getting over the fear of flopping and self-promotion? Ooh, in Ireland we love this one. We are terrified to like kind of scream in our own corner, which is like really ironic because like if you're not going to do it, who is? Do you know what I mean? But I totally get it. Like I have cringe every single day having to post on Instagram, you know what I mean? And it's so silly because like, so my agency is in the UK and I feel like UK people have such a different like outlook, even though like a lot of the girls that work there are Irish, but like, you know, when they're working with UK influencers, like UK influencers are so good at like self-promo, putting themselves out there. They're so good at like just not really giving a fuck. And Irish people were very self-conscious. And like, you know, my agent will be like, oh, why don't you post this? What about this? What about that? And I'll be very like, but like, what about what the people will think of me? And they're just like, what? Like, no, that has never happened. They've never said what, but like, I can tell and that makes sense for them to be like, what are you talking about? Like, who cares? Like, it's your job. And I don't even think you mean it in a influencer-y way, but it's just a way that I can relate to that question. My advice for getting over the fear is just keep reminding yourself that like the only person who loses when you don't like fight for yourself and have your own back and like fight your own corner when it comes to like jobs, raises, anything like that, the only person who loses is you. No one in your office is like, isn't she great? She never backs herself. Isn't she great? She never fucking asks for a raise. Like, if anything, it's one reason why there is still a wage gap is that like women do not value their work as much as like men overvalue themselves. Oh my god, I've got kimchi on my neck. Lovely. Men overvalue themselves, honestly, and it could be a what's the word, like it could be a controversial thing to say, but I'm not saying that like men are so good. I'm just saying that like a lot of the men who back themselves the most have the least amount of skill. But because most people are stupid and people just believe confidence, we just believe people who are like, oh yeah, I'll do that, I'll be really good. So you know what? As I say, the only person who's losing is you. I remember thinking about that in college. I used to be really afraid of like speaking up and asking questions. I'm still not great at it, but I remember in college, a lecturer was like, if you don't ask the question, the only person who's like none the wiser is you. Like, I don't know that you don't know it. No one in the class is going to ask the question for you, and it's so fucking true. You just have to back yourself. And even though it's cringe, it isn't cringe really, but in Ireland we think it's cringe. Just, I don't know, you need to have your own back because no one else in this world will have your own back, girls. What's your number one career tip? My number one career tip would be I'm going to mix Sculpted by Amy. This isn't my tip. Sculpted by Amy Tint and Glow Fenty Beauty Skin Tint. My number one tip would be try and keep as much of an open mind as possible. Some jobs that you think are going to be the worst might be the best. Some of the jobs that you think you could dream of, like if you spend all your time like being like, oh, once I work for Fenty, as an example, not, you know, the real thing, my life would be great. And then you go work for Fenty and it's nothing what you expected, and like maybe your boss is annoying and like the people you work with aren't that great. Like some of the best times at work that I've had have been like not the best jobs, and vice versa. So I just think keep your options open. Try and not, if you're really looking to progress, I would also say, especially financially, like sometimes the only way to get big financial get momentum on your like salary is sometimes just to leave your job. It's really annoying, but like I think it's just the marketplace right now of jobs is that like they don't tend to want to like promote within a lot of the time, and if they do give the job to someone from within the company, it's usually because they can get it cheaper, which is so annoying. I had that happen to me multiple times, and like look, you can't really take it personally because it is just what it is, but if you are unhappy with your salary, you know, sometimes you just have to move on. You just have to get another job, And don't think of jobs as like, jobs aren't what our parents had, you know, like when our parents were younger, like they could go into a job and it could be like a job for life. That whole idea of job for life is kind of gone now, and I'm not saying that's a positive thing, but in my opinion, like it's very rare, shall we say. It's much more rare than we think. So like I think removing that, it can be a bit of a what's the word? A bit of a generational thing, I think, for us, that we think like, oh, I have to get a job for life, and like, so like I just don't think that really works anymore or happens. So I wouldn't stress myself out over like, you know, moving job all the time. If your parents don't understand that, like it's just a completely different landscape to when they worked. So I don't think you should stress yourself out, is what I'm trying to say. But they'd be my tips, really. Like, you know, like what that other person asked, like back yourself, don't be afraid to ask questions, don't be afraid to look stupid, and just literally go like a fucking bat out of hell for what you want in a job, because no one's going to give you it if they don't know you want it. How do you divide business expenses and personal spending? I'm presuming this is from someone who is self-employed. Okay, well for me it's all about having a business account. As a sole trader, the one tax break we get, trust me, there's not many, is that we get to write off some stuff as an expense. But like when you write off some stuff, that also has like repercussions to your overall salary. So if you're trying to show a really high salary, like for a mortgage or whatever, like it's probably a good idea to not do that for loads of stuff. But if you're trying to pay less tax, you want to try and write off some stuff. So what I would say is get an accountant, preferably who is familiar with your industry, and maybe represents a few other people within your industry, and also having a business bank account. Like that's just a very cut and dry way. Otherwise it just gets too messy, it's hard to keep track of, and it is just messy. And you just, the one word you don't want associated with your accounts is messy. How to cope with fluctuation of income while being self-employed. So I am quite privileged in the sense that although I am self-employed, I do have a pretty steady income because I make the most of my money from Patreon. Now the thing with that is that also you do still have fluctuations, of course. Some months you make way more money, some months you make less, and you just kind of have to trust that it'll all even out in the end. We have this kind of very like particular way of viewing salaries as like a monthly thing or a weekly thing, and I understand that there can be a lot of anxiety around money when you're self-employed, especially if some months you might not make any money, you know, like that is a very real reality of a lot of my self-employed friends. Like you might not have any work one month, and like that's fucking tough. It is really tough. The way to deal with it is just by trying to have a bigger picture, and remembering that like it's either a feast or a famine, and you'll miss the months off when you are busy. But also keep yourself realistic. Like if you are getting to the point where you have way more free time and you're not making a lot of money, maybe it's time to think of getting like a second job, a supplementary job, even something more consistent, freelance, so that you can have that consistent income. Another one on money. Do you have a salary goal? I do personally, because I know how much like I have to make with rent. I know how much I have to make for things like expenses. I know how much I spend a month on certain things. So I have a number that I do try and hit every single month. But it's not the biggest deal in the world if I don't hit it, especially because some months I go way over it and I'm like, okay, great. It's kind of like what I was saying earlier, like some months it's just going to be way more than the other months is lower. I try and like every quarter of the year I'll do like an average of how much I'm making, and then also I'll do it like how much have I made so far and how much I need to make to get to my goal. And if I'm on track to that, then I'm fine. I try not to stress out about like, you know, worry about the pennies, the pounds will look after themselves. So in my mind, I'm like, just worry about like your overall income rather than being like, damn, January was terrible, you know? How do you manage savings and being self-employed and allowing treats? So I have a direct debit into a mortgage account. Currently I save €1,000 a month, and I have done for A little over 2 years now. I had some savings to put in there, and I also make sure to just keep on top of it because my goal is to buy a house in the future, so I do need to be able to show that I can pay back that amount in a mortgage. But obviously I think it's you know, have a savings account and have a realistic amount of how much you can put in there. I always think you need to have money for a rainy day, even if it's €100, even if it's €50. Like, don't go into the minus, don't be going into like zeros on your account. Like, it's not a good practice to keep. It's not the end of the world, obviously, and I understand that like money is tight at the moment, like fucking inflation is insane, but at the end of the day, like, you need money for a rainy day, you really do. So I think having a savings account is the best thing. And I remember one piece of information, or like a hint that I got from an old boss, was that having the money for an individual item doesn't mean you can afford to buy it. Being able to buy it and being able to save the same amount means that you can afford it. So for example, say this brow gel was €20. If I have €25 in my bank account, technically I have enough money for it, but affording it means that I can spend €20 and save another €20. So that is something that I've always kept in my mind when I'm trying to buy something, that I'm like, can I afford to also save the equal amount? And a lot of the times it'll stop you buying some shit that you do not need. Okay, I'm going to answer 2 more because I kind of can't concentrate. I always forget. I'm not very good at concentrating while doing makeup. Is there ever a work-life balance, or am I just being picky and need to cop on? It's hard, especially for me when I became self-employed. That was when I found it the hardest. You always hear people who are self-employed say that. Like, you always hear people say like, oh, when you're self-employed, like, you're never really not working. You're always kind of thinking of a way to work, especially when you're making content. Like, you are kind of always thinking like, oh, like even today I'm like, okay, I'll vlog, I'll do this. You know, you are always thinking like, you know, that you have to be doing something. There, like, the worst thing is that like people who should be ensuring you have work-life balance are your bosses if you are working for a company. And I never ever really found that in a lot of my jobs. And there were some that were better than others, absolutely, but there was always this expectation to kind of go above and beyond, which used to really frustrate me. I think the key really is to have a bit of a life within your work. Like, try and make friends in your work. That way, like, when they bleed into each other, it's not this like torturous affair. Because the times that it's been worse for me have been when like I didn't really like the people I was working with, or like I didn't really have that kind of vibe in work, you know. But the times where like I didn't really, where even though I didn't have much of a work-life balance, if I loved the people that I worked with and they were friends of mine, like it wasn't that bad. It just made it a little bit easier. But I do think it's something that you, boundaries wise, it's a boundary. You have to kind of put your foot down at times. But unfortunately, a lot of companies at the moment, like, they don't. They say they prioritize that, but they don't. Feeling disinterested in my job I've had since college for 7 years, but I don't know what else to do. Okay, so like the thing is, I see a lot of people, and I remember, I'm going to go on a bit of a rant here because this is something that I do remember feeling, and I spoke about it earlier. I remember being, I don't know how old you are, but I do remember being around 26 or so, and feeling a bit lost. And from the age of 24 to 26, I think I felt a bit lost. I didn't really know what to do. I kind of was like, you know, oh God, like, I like my job in marketing, but is this really it for me? Like, is this really all I'm gonna do? And I think it sounds really corny. It sounds really, really corny, but sometimes you just have to trust the process. Like, sometimes you just have to trust that, like, it will lead to a road where you're doing something that you love. And also, even if it doesn't, it's not the biggest deal, it's not the biggest end of the world. Just make sure you know yourself. Like, I think that's really important. Like, don't lose your identity. Like, don't lose that, you know, who you are and your own individual interests. Don't sacrifice those things for a job ever. Don't let some corporation take that away from you. Always keep those parts of yourself. And I know a lot of the times you can hear people talk about this and they're like, you know, if like all these roads led to me, and it's always usually being like self-employed or like an influencer or a content creator or traveling the world and being paid for it or something stupid like that. And it's like, that's not for everyone. But what I mean is that it will lead you to, at some point, hopefully a job that you are either happier at, or it'll lead you to a place where you know that you don't like what you're doing and you can change. If you don't like what you're doing really a lot, just try change. Like I had no experience in marketing and I went into it. I studied history of art, like what the fuck, and I got into marketing. Now they're not that far apart, but like all I mean is that like there's always time to go back to the drawing board. Don't listen to people when they tell you can't. Like it doesn't matter how long you've worked in a job, you can change careers. People do it all the time. My dad did it at like 43 or something. You might have to take a bit of a sacrifice for a while. You might need to make less money than your current job, but like if I do think that if you really want to change, you will do it. But also going on what I said earlier, like I just feel like don't put too much pressure on yourself to have to love your job. Like it's one thing your job really making you miserable, and another thing like, you know, feeling this pressure that like you have to like fucking love your job, like it has to be this like extension of you, and like you have to feel like so fulfilled by a job. Like a job, it's just unrealistic for a job. Like you can enjoy your job and think it's good, or like enjoy the money, but it doesn't like always have to fulfill every single fucking aspect. Oh my god, I've got a huge part of my face with no foundation on it. Am I for real? Imagine I went like that. Oh my god. Today is not my day. Yeah, like you just have to like kind of be realistic with yourself and kind of go, okay, am I the type of person that I want? Is that important to me? Is it important for me to you know, receive so much fulfillment and self-validation from my job? If it is, then fine, change it. Like let's figure it out. Like where do you want to work? What do you want to do? But if it isn't, and I kind of realized it wasn't, to be honest, if it isn't, fuck it, who cares? Don't start like putting so much pressure on yourself to have this like iconic amazing job that like is like part of your identity if you don't want it, and if that doesn't resonate with you as a person. I think that is important to remember. You know, it's a lot of people's, but it doesn't have to be yours, and I don't think it's as many people's as they claim to be. So I'm going to get ready off camera and then I'll show you the finished look when I'm ready, because honestly I cannot concentrate, answer questions and do my makeup. I can do it if it's like everyday makeup, but I'm trying to actually get like really glam, and I keep thinking like, what am I doing next, and I keep getting really distracted and leaving half my face without foundation. So I'll be back, and next time you see me hopefully I'll be looking fucking gorge.